Today we're going to show you how to use the control panels for our new fiddle yard. First of all, this panel, which is at the southern end of the yard, has point control, which is route selecting. Also, for DCC, we have point control, which is route selecting for analog and or DCC on the outer main line. The switches in the middle here switch power on and off to each of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sidings, which are indicated by the green pilot lights in the middle of the track of each siding. In terms of operating the controls themselves, if you look at the panel down here, this switch controls the point from the main line, which allows you to either travel down the main line or move into the switch yard. Changing that switch will change that one set of points only, as you can see. Now, if we select a route, shall we say we select siding number 1, we turn this switch to siding number 1. Power is on to siding number 1 because the green light for siding number 1 is illuminated. And at the moment, having selected siding number 1, you will notice that this set of points, that set of points, that set of points, and that set of points are all set to direct the train into siding number 1, as we shall see. If we wanted to move the train into siding number 2, we simply move this rotary switch to siding number 2. We check that power is on to siding number 2, and you'll now notice that having moved the selector switch, that set of points, that set of points, that set of points, and now this set of points is set to direct the train into siding number 2. The same process can be carried out for siding number 3, 4 or 5. After you've parked your train in the selected siding, always make sure that you return this switch to the main line position so that any other train coming through is now directed around through the main line rather than into the sidings. One more switch for the DCC section of our switch yard. This particular switch here controls 2 sets of points which allow trains to either travel from the high line down to the main line, the outer main line, a DCC line, or if you change that switch, then the high line can progress straight through to the remainder of the high line, which is of course the set of tracks closest to the backboard on the lower level. The panel is made up of several parts. The DCC section, and this section here is the analog and or DCC as we choose to use it, which is the outer main line. The logic for using this set of switches is identical to the logic that you apply when using the DCC system. Again, a rotary switch, route selection, siding 1, siding 2, siding 3, and a switch which controls the outlet points, which can be switched either to mainline running or siding exit. And again, once you have exited the sidings, always ensure that you return that switch to the position so that the mainline set of points is set to the main line for any other train that happens to be coming through. One more section, this elevated setup position, which is the set of tracks where you can see Thomas the tank engine poking his nose out of the tunnel mouth. Those two switches there control the two sets of points on the elevated section to allow a train parked up there to exit, come down through the spiral and continue off along the high line, as we call it. DCC only, of course, being the control system here. This is the panel at the northern end of the fiddle yard, and the logic here and the colour coding is identical to that at the southern end of the switch yard. The inner main line, yellow, the high line, as we call it, blue, and the outer main line, or the DCC's analogue line, is red. Again, two rotary switches. Both of them are set up for route selection in the DCC yard, sidings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, along with a switch that controls the set of points which allow you to exit to the main line. And again, once you've exited the switch yard, please return the switch to the main line position. The analog yard, again, logic is identical. Route selection, siding 1, 2, 3, and a mainline siding switch which allows you to select either entering the analog yard or continuing around through the main line. And once again, having entered the yard, please return the switch to the main line position. One last little piece of information, that switch at that point controls two sets of points which allow transition between the inner main line and the high line if somebody travelling down the inner main wishes to then transfer their train to the high line. We are now going to show you a train leaving through siding number 2. You will notice that the rotary switch is selecting siding number 2. The mainline switch is set to select the siding or the switch yard. As you will see, that set of points is set so that a train can exit, and that set of points, and now that set of points is set up so that a train leaving siding number 2 can exit all the way through and continue up the main line. The panel, which is in the middle of the fiddle yard, is to allow trains entering and or leaving the analogue section of the fiddle yard in a realistic manner. The system is set up with a controller specifically for the fiddle yard, so that when you are leaving the yard, for instance, you've selected at the southern end, you've selected a siding on which you are going to leave from. You've switched power on to the appropriate siding, shall we say siding number 1, and then you have a throttle here which normally you would have set on 0, and then as you increase the voltage to your train, the train should start up in a realistic slow manner until when you get around to number 10, the voltage on the siding that you are exiting is exactly the same as the voltage on the main line, so your train leaves the siding eventually at the same speed as it will progress around the rest of the analogue main line.
And John, that applies mainly to the DC track only?
That applies only to the DC track.
Which are these tracks here?
Siding 1, siding 2, and siding 3.
And they are ballasted in a different colour?
Yeah, they're ballasted in a different colour to the DCC sidings.